Poddin My Noggin, hosted by CK Sims, creating a platform to elevate, educate, and heal by creating a space where people can share their stories of struggle, triumph, and redemption. CKS Media.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the season 2 premiere of Poddin My Noggin. It's been a little while since our last show. We took a bit of a break, and this is the first show to many shows that we have planned for Poddin My Noggin over the year of 2025. And it's already shaping up to be quite the incredible 2025. We are looking at more guests with authors who I get to read their books first, and we can talk about them on screen, like when we're doing the interview, which I think is really cool. I got to do that with Good Mood Revolution last year and South of the Yangtze with Flora Qian. Also, I got to speak to Erica D'Arcangelo about her book, A Story About Pizza. And she sent me this book and I gave it a read, and it's very lovely read. I will not give anything away except that it is packed full of really incredible recipes. If you like Italian food and to know the story of Dark's Pizza in Winburn, okay, I'm always forgetting that name, but the pizza place is still standing today and you can go and visit it. You can check out last season to see that interview with more details, but the book is definitely a must read. And if you want to try out some of the really incredible recipes that are inside, you want to go buy this. So this is another book that I got to read because of this podcast. And if you've been following along, you all know how much I love to read. I also just found out that The Crash by Frida McFadden is released today. So I just went and ordered myself a copy of that. And yeah, so it's been, first season was great. You know, we spent a lot of time at the end of the year sort of doing a recap and just shouting out gratitude for the successful first season. And this being the second season, I just wanted to come back and do the first episode, just myself, to sort of set the tone. We have authors on our next episode. Not an author yet, although this person is probably capable of doing absolutely anything. And well, we have my very first guest ever, Jen Lord, coming back on the show. Will be sharing with us all about her 2024 and all of the incredible things that have happened in her life since we talked last. And there could be a bonus episode in there because she spent a significant amount of time in LA recently during the fires. And we want to sort of talk about that as well. So that's going to be coming up on the next episode. And so, you know, I hope everybody had a wonderful holiday break. I know I did. I got to see my family. I got to see my best friends, do a little shopping. We went to the US for a few days, and actually I've been down twice now, and went to my favorite store, and I'm going to give them a shout out, Joanne. They are in chapter 17 right now, which is really sad, and I hope that things work out for them, because I really just discovered them within the last 3 months, and they are my happy place because I love to sew and I love fabrics and all of those wonderful things. So over the holidays, I was able to rest, which is so important. And I think sometimes one of the lessons I've learned over the holidays with the rest and is that sometimes you can just get so busy that you're not paying attention to the signs that your body is giving you and letting you know that you need to slow down and take a moment, actually rest. And I think that that's where I was at. And getting to see my mom and dad were quite wonderful. It was only a few days, but it was a wonderful few days. I have some thoroughly wonderful memories that I will hold on to for that period of time. Traveling across Eastern Canada with my aunt and uncle to get to my mom and dad's, and the traveling back, and we're driving through snowstorms, you know, all of those things. just a lot of gratitude in 2025. And 2024 was so wonderful and so great that 2025, I just know is going to be an extraordinary year for myself in all kinds of ways, not even just in this podcast or work, but just in my life and in creating for me experiences. I want to slow down a little and be a little bit more present in life and just take stock regularly, right? And, when I was off on the holidays, I was thinking um, a lot about like what I do in my spare time to um, have creative outlets, right? Because I think we focus so often, I get so focused into work that I forget to fill my cup other ways. And while the podcast definitely fills my cup, it's also work. And so I was kind of looking around my life and thinking, like, what is it that I really love doing? And one of the things that I really love doing is sewing. I've mentioned that before. Quilting. I'm not a great quilter, but I love quilting. And, it made me think about like, how do I add more value and creative outlets to my life? So the quilting thing for me is really interesting. And I wanted to talk about that today. So, I think there's a part of me that is a perfectionist and doesn't want to do anything unless it can be perfection. Because in my mind, when I design something or when I think about something, it is perfect in there. I picked up quilting on my own. I didn't have any lessons. I taught myself how to sew, taught myself a lot of things. And while I'm no seamstress or anything of that matter, I got a lot of joy from it. But what I realized was that I was getting a lot of stress from it as well, because sewing quilts and things like that, striving for protection, no, I said protection, I meant perfection. I just couldn't get it to be perfect ever. And I remember, I think it was probably 3 or 4-ish years ago, saying to myself, like coming to a point in my life where I had to make a decision, really, was what I had to do. I got so much joy and therapy from sewing and quilting, like making something pretty to me, putting thought in it, and then like coming out with sort of a finished product was like, I don't know, I can't even explain how much joy that brought me. And there was always a lot of joy around sewing and quilting. But then at the same time, there was a lot of anguish because, the squares or the patches wouldn't line up exactly perfectly. And I wouldn't stitch something perfectly. The line was a little squiggly. The weight of the quilt pulled too much. Lots of little errors. And I had to come to a point in my life where I had to make a decision. And because the joy that quilting brought me and the anguish that quilting brought me were at war with one another. And it was the joy in just doing and creating versus the anguish of striving for perfection, and that were at odds with one another. And I had to decide, like really sit down and decide, okay, this is me thinking in my head, which is often what I do. I had to say, like, you know what, you have to decide that. Do you just go lean into the joy, lean into the therapeutic nature of sewing, quilting, and throw the perfection to the wind? Or do you lean into that you need to have everything perfect, realize that you cannot create perfection as you see it in your mind, and then just throw everything out the window? And that was really a decision that had to be made. So it took a little while, but I did decide that I love to create. Things I create are never going to be perfect, ever. And that was something I had to accept about myself and say my limitations, right? Whenever I make a quilt, it is never perfect. But I will tell you this, it is made with lots of love and a lot of curse words, but a lot of love and a lot of curse words. And I get such immense joy out of quilting. I don't know why. I can't explain it. I've never talked about it with my therapist, but it literally brings me so much joy. I mean, this past year, I made 4 quilts from October 15th until just before Christmas. I made one for myself, and that one was with a border, not a binding, a border. I don't like bindings. And I, did a border, and I wanted to do one for myself because if I messed up the border, then it was just for me anyway. I wanted to make a quilt for my grandmother with a border and with batting. Batting is not my friends. Just added weight. I'm sure there's techniques and things that I can probably learn and will work on over the course of time. But, oh, I don't like it. I don't love batting. And I made a quilt for my father that was very personalized with little embroidered designs on it that were very much about my dad. He's always cold. So when I go home to his house for Christmas, I have to beg him to not put the wood furnace in because wood furnace, if you've ever had one, is not really regulated very well. It's just hot. Whereas if he uses oil furnace, then you can sort of set the temperature. And I just knew that when I was going home, I'm like, Dad's probably going to have the wood furnace in, and I'm going to be melting all the time. And luckily, we came to an agreement, and he stuck with the oil. So we were able to keep it pretty comfortable in the house for mostly everybody. With Dad's quilt particularly, I chose to do 3 layers of batting, but I chose to do that one borderless. And that's a technique that I just do. I don't know if it comes from somewhere, but it was how I do. And there was um a high grade cotton middle batting and then thermal polyester batting on either side, and then the external quilts. Now, when I make quilts, I will typically make a front and back reversible quilt. So whatever squares I cut out, and I typically stick to squares, I will design them so that if you were to flip the quilt over, it's designed the exact same way and it's reversible. For my father's was the first time I actually used a backing. And it turned out really, really well. He's very happy with it. It's very heavy. It's very warm, which he was super pleased about. Surprisingly, someone who also really loves the quilt I made for my father is the family cat, Nitro. And he loves that quilt. I guess because it's so warm that he just loves it. He sleeps on it, sleeps under it. Like it's probably more his than it is my dad's at this point. And then I made my best friend a quilt as well. And yeah, so there was 4 in total, and I enjoyed everything about it. And that's because I had to say, years ago, and always remind myself when I'm going through to make a quilt and I'm striving for something, that it's not going to be perfect. And it's okay if it's not perfect. It's the joy that you get from it, the thought behind it, and is it functional? Does it function? I think that those are the things that I look at now in life when it comes to quilting. And so anyway, that was great. I did a lot of sewing. My other best friend there was this new sewing machine by Singer that came out, the SE91. It was sewing and embroidery, and it was their first connected sewing and embroidery machine by Singer. And I believe that it's really sort of a replica of, if I'm not wrong, the Husqvarna Viking Topaz 29. I might have that wrong, but somewhere in there. She bought that for me for Christmas, and I have been embroidering so many things, and I have thoroughly enjoyed that as well. So I have the embroidery and I have the sewing. Joanne in the US that I go to get all my fabrics, so that is a creative outlet that I am going to explore more this year, and I'm really excited about it. But what happened is over the holidays when my best friend came to visit me, I had this thought. And the thought was, I have my podcast, which I love, and all the guests that I get to interview, and then I love to sew. What if I sort of do something to bring the two together, if you will? So I thought to myself, okay, well, what would that look like? And I was like, what can I do? And then to say, maybe drum up a little bit more audience for the show, a little bit of promotion, things like that. And I was like, you know what? I think I will make a quilt and I will put a contest out on Poddin My Noggin. And so I sat and I thought and I ruminated with that for a little bit. And then I was like, okay, well, all right, I'm going to make a quilt, gearing up or filming some episodes. We're making sure that we can get our guests lined up accordingly. And I was like, okay, I'm going to make a quilt. And then I said, you know what else I'm going to do? I'm going to make a pattern for my quilt with the technical pieces and all, and then a walk through and all of that jazz. And I'm going to sell that pattern as well. And then I'm going to wrap it all up into a contest. So that is what we're going to talk about right now. I'm going to show you the quilts that we are going to use as our first ever Poddin My Noggin quilting contest. And 1 second. So this one is a Valentine's Day themed quilt. The contest will run from February 1st until February 28th, and we will actually do the draw on the 28th of February. And the quilt that I made is right here, okay? It has a border, cute little red polka dot border. It has this, I'm going to try and show you all the little pieces. It has this swatch in it. It has this cute one here. It has some little pink hearts. It has this one over here. It is what I call a lap quilt. It is about 48 inches wide, 50 with the border, as you can see. And it is about 70 inches long. And we have a promo video with some behind the scenes to run in just a second. But so this is the quilt that we're going to be, that's going to be in the contest. Just pulling it up for you to see. Perfect. Coming down, folding it. And then on top of the quilt, whenever I make a quilt for someone, I also make a matching pillow. Yeah, I know I'm extra. So there's the matching pillow for the quilt as well. And the backing is the same as the border. It's all little red polka dots. And so we're going to go and watch a little behind the scenes promo, and we'll be right back.
This month, join our Valentine's Quilt Sweepstakes, hosted by Poddin My Noggin and made by CK Sims. Enter for the chance to win the Valentine's Quilt and matching pillow by subscribing to Poddin My Noggin's YouTube channel. The sweepstakes will run from February 1st to February 28th, when the winner will be announced. Additionally, you can receive 10 extra entries by purchasing the Easy Beginners Digital Quilt Pattern Valentine's Edition. Check out the sweepstakes rules below and access the link in the description to enter today.
Partner today with CK Sims and Poddin My Noggin to get in front of an audience that cares. You will be supporting mental health stories, tales of resilience, and uplifting content, aligning your brand with bringing goodness, authenticity, and kindness front and center. This spot could be yours. Do you have a story of struggle and resilience? One that you want to share with others, and possibly help someone through their own struggles? Find the link in the show description and fill out the guest form today.
Welcome back, everybody. Thanks for staying tuned in. So before the break and before the promo, we were talking about the contest. So the contest will run from February 1st until February 28th. As you might have saw in the promo, there are two ways to enter. So one, the simplest way, the no purchase necessary way, is to head on over to YouTube and subscribe to my channel. And so anyone who subscribes to my channel from February 1st to February 28th will be entered in the draw on the 28th for the quilt and the pillow. We're going to be shipping this out to Canada, the US, UK, and European Union. Depends on who wins. The caveat for, and this is like not really a caveat, it's more of a caution. If you're subscribing to the channel, you're going to actually have to make sure that I can see your username when you subscribe. Some people have it turned off where you can, they can subscribe, but you don't get to see who it is that's subscribing. Here's the thing. If that's the case, then when I export from February 1st to 28th followers to the YouTube channel, you won't show up at all. Okay. So I won't be able to include you in that contest draw. The second option to enter this draw is a paid option, but I'll explain to you what it is. So I've always wanted to do this, and I think I've mentioned Rebecca C. Creative helping me out with this show before. They are extraordinarily talented, really great with design and technical design. So I was able to spend quite a number of hours with that team and that person. It's one person, but they do the work of like 50 people, is able to spend a significant amount of time with them and working out the technical components of doing a quilt pattern. So I designed a quilt pattern that is called an Easy Beginners Quilting Guide pattern. I might have messed that up, but you get the gist. Essentially what it is it does have the printable pages that you can print out to actually cut out the pattern and tape them together to get your squares, to get your border pieces. There's a bonus section on how to make the pillow as well. And then I walk through the whole process of doing it. And so for this particular pattern, I have done it in such a way that anybody could pick it up and understand what to do. If they've never made a quilt before, it is just really simple. I think it's really simple. The quilt pattern costs $8. When you purchase the quilt pattern, your entry, your name, will be entered into the draw 10 times. And if you've subscribed on the channel and you've purchased the quilt pattern, you will have 11 entries total in the February 28th draw. So we will announce the winner. We'll do the draw on February 28th, and we will announce the winner on February 28th. And I'm not sure yet if that's going to be a live event or if it's going to be pre-recorded and released. I don't know. We'll have to figure the logistics of that out at a later date. And so then we started doing this, and so we have a finished pattern that can be purchased. It's a digital download. We're going to give the link to you if you want to purchase that pattern. Any of these purchases, you get the free quilt, but it's also going to go to ensuring that we can advertise for Poddin My Noggin, and we can do some really cool things with our audiences. So it's a contest to create better awareness for the show, which the show centers around people who have faced great adversity and have come out the other side to define their own version of success. I think it's a great show. I don't think anything about myself. I just think about the guests that we have on the show have a lot to offer people in the way of light and lessons learned. And I do think at this point in our lives, we need more of that. And I want to continue doing this, and I can status quo with no assistance. However, I want to do things that are bigger and more fun and giving back to the audience and the supporters, and say, I don't know what that looks like, but like I've always loved shows that had giveaways and contests and prizes and surprises, that sort of thing. So the patterns are to help generate income to help the show grow and to exactly fill out those dreams, if you will, of wanting to do nice things for others, promotion, all of those things. It is what it is. So yes, so the two ways, just to cover again, to get this quilt and the matching pillow are to go to my channel on YouTube and hit subscribe, ensuring that I'll be able to see that you've subscribed. And perhaps if you want to be sure that I've seen that you've subscribed, you can write subscribe in the comments. And I hope that that shows your username so that I can announce it properly. So if you do that, you get one. If you go over to my link in bio, which will give you an option to attach that, you can purchase the digital quilt pattern. I believe it's around a 25 to 26 page digital quilt pattern that you can download, and then I'll give you some tips on that as well. When you do purchase that, you get 10 entries into the draw that will happen on February 28th. So you could get 11 entries if you subscribe and purchase the digital quilt pattern. It will show you how to make this pattern exactly. Now, mind you, I'll tell you that the pattern can be used with any theme. It doesn't have to be Valentine's theme. It could be anything that you want. And then when you download the pattern, I want to tell everybody this as well. When you download the pattern, like unless you have an abundance of ink and money and paper and whatever, I wouldn't go and print the whole pattern. Okay. The reason I say that is because there's a lot of pages, and then there's full color spectrum of promo shots for this quilt, on this chair, the digital design of this quilt, so full color, right? So there's going to be 4 pages for the 10-inch square, and then there's going to be 4 pages for the 8 by 12-inch border pattern. So you only have to print 8 pages, and then you can keep the digital element open to be able to walk through. And I tell you that because we want to save the environment, and we also want to save your money as well. One of the other really cool things is that I think I've pretty much committed to doing a quilt contest every month for this year, except for January, because January is almost over. So I think I've just started sort of designing a new pattern as well. So the pattern we have right now is Easy Beginners Pattern, Valentine's Quilt Edition, or Valentine's Edition. I can't remember the exact words or the exact title. It'll be posted in the summary and description, and is designed for the absolute beginner, with a lot of little tips and things on what to do for if you've never touched a sewing machine even before, that sort of thing. As we continue along, I think the next one is going to be a Women's Day quilt, Women's Month quilt, which is March. And I have found such cute fabric that I think will be really nice for that particular quilt. And I think I'm just going to change up, instead of just the 10-inch squares, I'm going to do something a little different, and we'll get the pattern for that as well. I think each month we'll have the opportunity to subscribe, but you can also purchase the pattern to get 10 entries. So that's where we're at for 2025 is you have the opportunity to win some quilts and make some quilts. And hey, if you've purchased the pattern and you've made this quilt, I want to see it. I want you to send pictures, tag me on any of the socials at author CK Sims. At Facebook, it's author, but instead of the O, it's 0. CK Sims. I want to see them, and I want to see all your pictures. If you have questions when you're going through it and you've never used a guide before, or you don't know what I'm talking about, then you can send me a message, comment, and I will respond. But I totally want to see your creations. I love homemade blankets. I love anything that's homemade, to be honest with you. It is my guilty pleasure in life. I love little homemade things, people that have made by hand. I value them always so very much. So that is pretty much my episode for today. I wanted to come on and welcome you to season 2 of Poddin My Noggin. We have a new backdrop, as you can see from the last season. And this has been up for a while, since November, I believe, but it was the season 2 backdrop. And I wanted to do this because when I have people on my show this year that have books that they've sent me, they're going to find homes on these shelves so that every podcast I do for the remainder of the year, their books will actually be on display. So I love books. I love plants. This is a real plant. It's not a fake one. I need to water it. It's turning a little yellow at the top. And as you can see, also, I am obsessed with owls. You get to see a little bit more of me here. And yeah. So 2025, man, I just want to say I'm excited about the show, the guests that we have coming on, the opportunities that I'm hoping to create. And, I just want to bring joy, right? I think we need to fill our lives with as much joy as possible. It's dark times out there. And if we can get some joy from certain things like quilting or sewing or any of that sort of thing, any hobby, that you might have, and as long as it doesn't involve harming others, is a great way to get joy in this life and fill your cup. So thank you very much for tuning in to the first episode of season 2 of Poddin My Noggin. We will be back very soon with our first guest, Jen Lord. Mine, Jennifer Aniston, Jen Lord, and we're going to talk about her 2024 and we're going to talk somewhat about her time during spending in LA during the fires, and then also the quilt and pillow. So thanks for tuning in. Until next time, get out there and live your wildest dreams.
For media and sponsorship inquiries, email info@cksims.com or visit cksims.com and fill out the contact form. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. A new episode airs every Saturday. CKS Media.